Welcome to Stormin Chocolate. I'm Stormin Norman. Today's song is number 36, Voxel Ux by Tangerine Dream, and included in the re-release of Quinoa. Before we get started, there's a couple bits of information I'd like to get across. First, as I said at the end of song number 35 when introducing the next video and song, this one, when I got the album at the end of the 90s, I was uninformed and thought the name was pronounced Quinoa. Now, I'm a clever guy, and seeing the letters QU means you get a qua sound, and followed by IN leads to the obvious Quin. And the OA ending should be just like the Italian town of Genoa, right? So, Quinoa. Not so fast. Turns out it's actually from the South American Andean Quechua language, who pronounce it Quinoa. Okay, so I wasn't that far off. However, this then got filtered through the Spaniards because imperialism, and then to English, which became quinoa. WTF? I had the album in my library for at least a decade before my wife started feeding this grain to Chocolate, and a couple more years before she asked me to make him some quinoa, but I couldn't find it in the pantry. Nothing in there was spelled quinoa, so she had to come and point me at a box that had the word quinoa on it. And then we had that argument.
Hang on. That's not real, is it?
Yeah, it's real.
That's not a joke?
No, it's real. Well, it is. It's funny, but it's real. Do you think I'm lying here? I have integrity to maintain. Anyway, officially, neither of us was correct, with the correct Quechua pronunciation being something in the middle. And both Big Red and Chocolate tease me about this to this day. Second, there are two versions of the album. When I wrote the script for the previous song, at the end I said that today's song, Voxel Ux, came from 1992's Tangerine Dream album, Quinoa, because that's where it is in my iTunes database. But reality is even stranger. The first version was a limited 1,000 copy release with only the Quinoa suite on it, created as a gift for the official TD International fan club, and ran about 28 and a half minutes long. The second version, which is what I have, was released in mid-98 and included 2 additional songs. The first edition, composed by Edgar Froese's son Jerome, was today's song, Voxel Ux. It was composed for a competition on Tangerine Dream's 1996 homepage. The second edition was Lhasa, which ended up getting extended by about 4 minutes and included on their album The 7 Letters from Tibet as track 5, The Blue Pearl. Why am I telling you this? Well, fortunately, as of today, we haven't recorded the previous erroneous script, so I was able to go back and change it from 1992 to 1998. Phew! Saved myself some embarrassment there. Up to this point, we've mentioned the Virgin years and the Melrose years, 2 eras of Tangerine Dream creativity and album contracts. The Virgin years of 1974 to 84, when they were on that label, included albums like Rubicon, Force Majeure, and Hyperborea, and soundtracks like Thief and Risky Business. I think of this as the classic TD era. This was followed by the Blue years, or 84 to 88, of 4 studio albums, 2 live albums, and 8 soundtracks. The Melrose years of 88 to 90 with 8 releases, and the Seattle years of 91 to 95 with 7 releases, including the original Quinoa. The Melrose years were all on private music, and the Seattle years on a combination of Virgin and Miramar, depending on country. Following this was the decade for the TDI years, their own label. These eras are mostly label related and don't tie directly into personnel changes. At the end of the Virgin years, Johannes Schmeling had been with Edgar Froese and Christopher Franck for about 5 years, and would remain one more before heading off to do solo work. Paul Haslinger joined about a year later and hung around until 1990, basically the end of the Melrose years, before he also went off on his own. Both of these third wheels put their own spin on the band during their tenures. However, Christopher Franck left in 1987 and went off to Hollywood to concentrate on soundtracks and the occasional solo studio effort. And in 1990, just before Paul Haslinger left, Edgar's son Jerome officially joined the group and remained until 2006. Voxel Ux, then composed by Jerome, only included himself and his pop. I consider Voxel Ux to be a long Tangerine Dream song at just under 12 minutes, and it's one that starts slowly, but not real slow like Remote Viewing from Exit, which takes 2.5 minutes before the sequencer kicks in. Voxel only takes about 30 seconds before the piano sequencer starts up, following what I think of as a semi-overture of gentle synths going up and down. As the sequence starts, the synths fade away, which makes the piano stark, standing out more. There are some occasional pings in the background, but you could miss them. Then, after about 15 seconds, we get a picking sequencer. Not necessarily a guitar sound, but something that has a noticeable attack. At the same time, we get a third synth sequence kind of supporting the picking, which rotates through 3 notes every bar. It's an interesting sound, one which makes me think that it's being filtered through fog.
What?
And then at about a minute in, we get the string sequencer, violins, cellos, etc. This adds to the expression of speed since these are all quick notes at double time. Over the next half minute, we get a kind of enunciation synth on top of the melange we already have going. And then at a minute 45, after 2 blasts of enunciation, we step back, lose a couple of sequencers, and the picking sound plays lead with quick rising notes followed by careful, thoughtful descending notes. At about 2:10, we get... What are you laughing about?
I've never seen more errors in one of these scripts. This is the first time.
I know! What the hell? At about 2:10, we get another change where the piano comes back, playing dual note descending patterns before jumping back up again. At a high level, this is appropriate to what the picker just did. However, the piano is going to play a tricky bit. It plays 3 notes up on the beat, pauses, then plays them in reverse order, down, off the beat. Or is it? That's what makes it tricky. This continues until just after the 5-minute mark. We do get a bit of percussive sounds, but the first, which sounds like a brush snare tap at double time, and the second, which sounds like a light tom hit, are very subtle, with the snare slowly rising in volume over like 2 minutes. At the 5-minute mark, all the obvious sequencers go away pretty abruptly, and we get eerie synths playing softly, and then a chord change to introduce the second movement. After the chord change, we get a new sequencer that has a combination bass, light drum, and high-pitched electric piano. While the bass is playing 2 notes, the piano appears to be playing 6 different notes. There's also a sequencer playing counterpoint under the piano, but it's a fairly unobtrusive sound, just part of the mix. At the 7-minute mark, the sequencers start to break down, slowing and removing instruments, and we have the beginning of the third movement. This starts a couple of sequencers with a smoky, foggy synth playing around, a picking piano playing 4 rising notes continuously on the beat, and some almost random sounds to introduce those new instruments. Most notably is a drum kit, which eventually starts up and keeps the beat during this movement. Just as in the last 2 minutes of the first movement, where the sequencers mix together differently, like variations on a theme, the third movement does the same over its 5-minute duration. It also has similar pauses before taking up that driving beat again. At the end, there are 2 note progressions that have appeared before in the 3rd movement, but at the end of the 2nd of these, the song ends abruptly, almost rudely. It's almost satisfying, and it's almost disturbing. Or, as Chocolate is fond of saying, it is what it is.
What I am?
Here at the end of the video, you might think I'll tell you what Voxel Ux really means. Voxel by itself can mean a volumetric pixel, which means a 3D counterpart to the 2D pixel. UX in all caps is short for user experience, however, it's not capitalized in this title, so I don't know what it means in this context. If you have any idea, please leave it in the comments. By the way, doing a quick Google search, I did find a Chihuahua breed called Voxel Ux. Well, that's it for Voxel Ux by Tangerine Dream from the reissue of Quinoa. Shush. That's it for Voxel Ux by Tangerine Dream from the reissue of Quinoa. Next time, Peter Frampton will show you the lines on my face as he comes alive. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.